I'm Piper Nelson, 27, an accountant in Atlanta trapped in a family that never recognized my worth. My parents always had one child on a pedestal, and that child wasn't me. At parties, they'd raise their glasses, smiling on the surface while their words cut like knives. One child was their pride, the other, me, just took up space. My sister had everything handed to her, a $300,000 condo, lavish vacations, and my parents' endless applause. Me, I was forced to sign a $15,000 loan to cover her college debt, a debt whose interest tightened around my savings as I worked late nights buried in spreadsheets and pressure. A promotion at the firm, a corner office, a steady career climb invisible to them. My sister's $2,500 designer coat. That was worth a toast. Every comparison carved into me a reminder I'd never be good enough in their eyes. But I wasn't breaking, I was planning. Every secret dollar I tucked away was another step toward freedom, toward a life 3,000 miles away in Boston, a place they couldn't reach. Before we start, drop a comment below. Tell me which city you're in and what time it is now. I'd love to know how many cities and time zones this story has reached around the world. Every dollar I saved felt like a step toward freedom. I sat at the bank, pen in hand, signing a loan agreement to cover Tabitha's college debt. The banker's eyes flicked to me, questioning, but I didn't flinch. The $12,000 balance was hers, years of skipped classes and failed startups, but Mom and Dad insisted I help the family. My own finances were stretched thin, my modest apartment barely paid for, yet I was the one shouldering her mess. Every month, $450 came out of my paycheck, a chain tying me to their demands. I gritted my teeth, knowing they'd never ask Tabitha to repay me. Tabitha, now 30, strutted through Atlanta's high-end boutiques, dropping thousands on silk dresses and imported handbags. Her latest purchase, a $3,000 pair of heels, flashed across her social media, captioned, "Living my best life." Mom called her driven, Dad praised her ambition, as if my 60-hour workweeks meant nothing. They'd sit at dinner fawning over her reckless spending while I ate in silence, my contributions invisible. Her lifestyle wasn't ambition, it was a mirage built on my sacrifice. At the firm, I'd poured everything into my work. Last month, my manager called me into her office, a rare smile on her face. "Piper, you're getting a raise, and a senior accountant title," she said. I'd streamlined a client's tax filings, saving them millions, and the partners noticed. I walked out, chest swelling with pride, thinking maybe Mom and Dad would finally see me. I was wrong. I told them over coffee, expecting a nod, a word of praise. Dad snorted. "That's nice, but Tabitha's closing a deal for her boutique." Mom added, "She's going places, Piper. You should take notes." My stomach twisted, their words a slap. My achievement, my years of grinding, reduced to a footnote. That night, I overheard them on the phone with Tabitha, their voices warm with pride. "You're doing so well," Mom gushed. "We need Piper to step up like you. Step up." I was drowning in their expectations, forced to bankroll Tabitha's failures while they called her a star. Dad's voice cut through. "Piper needs to contribute more to this family. Contribute more." I'd given everything, my savings, my time, my pride. Their comparisons weren't just unfair, they were a betrayal. I sat on my couch, staring at the loan documents, my signature a mark of their control. I wasn't their fallback anymore. I opened my laptop, pulling up job listings in Boston. The city's skyline, its promise of distance, called to me. Accounting firms there were hiring senior roles with salaries that could cover a one-bedroom in Back Bay. I scrolled through cost of living calculators, $2,800 for rent, $200 for utilities, $400 for insurance. It was steep, but I could make it work. I'd been stashing $300 a month in a hidden account separate from the one Mom and Dad knew about. It wasn't much, but it was mine, untouched by their demands. I researched neighborhoods, Beacon Hill, South End, mapping out a life free from their shadow. Every job application I drafted felt like a rebellion. I tailored my resume, highlighting my new title, my tax expertise, my ability to handle pressure. One firm, a mid-sized outfit in downtown Boston, posted a role that fit me perfectly: $95,000 a year benefits, and a clear path to partner. I spent hours perfecting my cover letter, my fingers trembling with purpose. This wasn't just a job, it was a lifeline. I imagined walking into a new office, my name on a door, no one comparing me to Tabitha. But doubt crept in. What if they found out Mom had a way of sniffing out my plans, her voice dripping with guilt trips? "Family comes first, Piper," she'd say, as if I hadn't carried them for years. Dad would back her up his lectures about duty, leaving no room for argument. I pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the numbers. Boston was 3,000 miles away, far enough to break their hold. I calculated moving costs: $1,500 for a truck, $500 for deposits. My savings were growing, but I needed more time, more money. I started cutting corners, canceled subscriptions, skipped dinners out, sold an old chair for $50 online. Each small act felt like defiance, a brick in the wall I was building between me and them. Tabitha's latest post popped up on my phone, a photo of her at a rooftop bar, glass raised, captioned, "Chasing Dreams." Mom commented, "So proud," I swiped it away, my jaw tight. Her dreams were my burden, but not for long. I contacted a Boston realtor asking about apartments. She sent listings: small studios, nothing fancy, but enough for a fresh start. I saved every email, every link in a folder labeled taxes to throw Mom off if she snooped. My plan was taking shape, each step a quiet promise to myself. I wasn't just running, I was rewriting my future. The firm called me for a phone interview. The hiring manager's voice was crisp, professional. "Your resume stands out, Piper," she said. "We're impressed with your tax work." For the first time in months, I felt seen. I hung up, heart racing, and added another $100 to my savings. Boston wasn't a dream, it was a deadline. I'd be ready when the time came. The clink of champagne glasses hit a brewing storm. I walked into my parents' 35th anniversary party, my heart pounding like a drum. The room buzzed with Atlanta's elite old friends, distant cousins, business associates, all gathered to celebrate Mom and Dad. I wore a simple black dress, understated, but it didn't matter. Eyes skipped over me, drawn to Tabitha's shimmering gown, her laughter cutting through the chatter. I stood near the edge of the crowd, gripping my glass, feeling like an outsider in my own family. Mark stood, his presence commanding, and raised his glass. "To 35 years," he began, his voice warm, "and to family." Barbara, seated beside him, smiled tightly, her eyes scanning the room. Then Mark's tone shifted, sharper now. "Some kids make you proud," he said, glancing at Tabitha. "Others just take up space." The words landed like a punch, and laughter rippled through the guests. Tabitha's smirk was instant, her eyes glinting with malice as she leaned back, savoring the moment. I felt the room shrink, their stares pinning me down, my face burning under the weight of their judgment. I could have crumbled. I could have stayed silent like always. But something snapped. I set my glass down, the sound sharp against the table. "Good thing I've got my own place." 3,000 miles away, I said, my voice steady, cutting through the hum. "From now on, the rent, the utilities, the insurance, are all your problem?" The room froze. Mark's glass hovered midair, his jaw tight. Barbara's smile vanished, her hand clutching her necklace. Tabitha's smirk faltered, her eyes narrowing. I didn't wait for their response. I turned, my heels clicking as I walked away from the table, each step lighter than the last. Freedom coursed through me, a rush I hadn't felt in years. I didn't look back, but I heard the whispers start soft at first, then louder like a wave. "Did she just say?" that one guest murmured. "They pushed her too far." Another said, their voice low but sharp. I caught fragments as I moved through the crowd. "Ungrateful, cruel, she's right." The air buzzed with shock, their polished facades cracking. I pushed past a cousin, her eyes wide, and an old family friend who avoided my gaze. They'd seen the truth, My parents' favoritism, Tabitha's cruelty, my years of silence. I reached the edge of the room, my chest rising and falling. For the first time, I wasn't the one shrinking. Mark tried to call after me, his voice strained. "Piper, come back here." But it was too late. I'd said what I needed to say. Barbara's chair scraped as she stood, her voice hissing my name, but I kept moving. Tabitha said nothing, her silence louder than her usual barbs. I didn't care. I'd spent years carrying their expectations, their debts, their disdain. Now I was done. The guests' murmurs grew, their words a mix of pity and outrage. How could they say that a woman whispered to her husband? "She's been funding them." Another said, her tone sharp. I caught a glimpse of an older couple shaking their heads, their glasses untouched. My parents' perfect night was unraveling, their image tarnished in front of their precious circle. I didn't need to see their faces to know they were rattled. My words had stripped them bare, exposing their bias to everyone. I slipped out into the cool night air, my breath steadying. The weight of their words, their laughter, their control, it was gone. I'd walked away not just from the table, but from their hold on me. They'd mocked me one too many times, and I'd turned their stage into mine. The party continued behind me, but it didn't matter. I was already halfway to Boston in my mind and my heart. A week later, my phone lit up with betrayal. Tabitha's post hit my screen like a slap. "Some people think they're above family," she wrote, her words dripping with venom. "Selfish, ungrateful, tearing us apart." She twisted the party into a sob story, painting me as the villain who stormed out, leaving Mom and Dad humiliated. Comments poured in, her friends calling me cold, disloyal, a traitor to the family name. I stared at the lies, my fingers trembling. She'd turned my stand into her narrative, and people believed it. I wanted to fire back, to expose her years of freeloading, but I held back. Her words were a trap, and I wasn't falling for it. The next morning, a letter slid under my door. Mom's handwriting, neat and deliberate, filled the page. "Piper, your actions at the party were unacceptable," it began. "You owe us an apology to keep this family together." Her words were a masterclass in guilt, laced with phrases like family harmony and your duty. She didn't mention her own cruelty or Dad's, or how they'd mocked me in front of everyone. I folded the letter, my jaw tight, and tossed it into a drawer. I wasn't apologizing, not now, not ever. I needed someone to talk to, someone who'd get it. Clara, my coworker, met me at a coffee shop that afternoon. I poured out the story, the party, Tabitha's post, Mom's letter. Clara listened, her eyes steady, never interrupting. "You did the right thing," she said when I finished. "They're trying to control you. Don't let them." Her words were a lifeline, grounding me in my decision. She reminded me of my strength, my plan, my worth. "Boston's waiting," she added, her voice warm. "You're bigger than their drama." I nodded, my resolve hardening. Clara's support was the push I needed to keep going. Later that evening, my phone buzzed again. Rose, my cousin, sent a text. "Heard you're moving to Boston. What's the deal?" Her tone was curious, probing, but not warm. She didn't mention the party or Tabitha's post, just asked about my plans with a hint of skepticism. "Big move," she wrote. "You sure about this?" I stared at the message, unsure if she was fishing for gossip or genuinely interested. I replied vaguely, "Just need a change." Rose didn't push further, and I didn't expect her to. She wasn't on my side, she was just watching from the sidelines. Tabitha's post kept spreading, her followers piling on. "How could she do that to her parents?" one wrote. "Spoiled brat," another chimed in. Each comment stung, but I refused to engage. Social media was their battlefield, not mine. I opened my accounts, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and hit delete. The apps vanished from my phone, and with them, the noise. I felt lighter, unburdened by their lies. My world didn't need their validation anymore. With the digital clutter gone, I turned to my move. I pulled up my Boston folder, now brimming with notes. A new email from the realtor confirmed a studio apartment in South End, $2,600 a month, utilities separate. I'd budgeted for it, my savings just enough to cover the deposit. The firm in Boston had scheduled a second interview, this one in person. I booked a flight for next week, $250 as a round trip, and started listing my furniture for sale. My couch went for $100, my old TV for $75. Every sale was a step closer to cutting ties. I spent nights packing, sorting through years of belongings. Old photos, letters, keepsakes, they all felt like anchors to a life I was leaving behind. I kept only what I needed: clothes, my laptop, a few books. The rest went into boxes for donation or sale. My apartment, once a refuge, now felt temporary, a stepping stone to something better. I contacted my landlord, confirming I'd end my lease in 2 months. The paperwork was straightforward, my signature, a quiet declaration of independence. Clara texted me later that week, checking in. "You okay?" she asked. I smiled, grateful for her concern. "Better than ever," I replied. Her support lingered, a reminder that I wasn't alone, even if my family had turned against me. I didn't need Rose's approval or Tabitha's lies. I didn't need Mom's guilt trips. I was building a future on my terms. I checked my savings, $400, $200, enough for the move if I stayed disciplined. I added another $200 from a side gig auditing a small business's books. Every dollar counted, each one a brick in the wall between me and Atlanta. Tabitha's posts, Mom's letter. They were noise, not truth. I wasn't the selfish one. I was the one breaking free. 6 weeks later, Tabitha's world began to crumble. I was packing the last of my boxes when my phone buzzed. Tabitha's name flashed across the screen, a rare sight. "I need to talk," her text read, short and desperate. I hesitated, my fingers hovering. After her lies online, her silence at the party, I owed her nothing. But curiosity pulled me in. She asked to meet at her apartment, and against my better judgment, I agreed. Her place was a mess: empty wine bottles, unpaid bills scattered across the counter. The boutique she'd bragged about for years was done. "It's gone," she said, her voice flat. "The store's bankrupt. I'm drowning in debt." She looked at me, eyes pleading. "I need help, Piper. A loan, just to get by." I stood there, stunned. She'd spent years flaunting her success, racking up $20,000 in credit card debt on designer clothes and parties, and now she wanted my savings, the money I'd scraped together for Boston. I didn't say no right away. Instead, I offered to help clean up, hoping to understand her. We sorted through her chaos, boxes of unsold inventory, receipts for $4,000, bar tabs, notices from creditors. As we worked, I waited for an apology, a hint of regret for how she'd treated me. It never came. "You've always had it easy," she muttered, tossing a dress into a pile. "No one expected anything from you." Her words stung, as if my years of carrying her debts didn't count. She still saw me as the lesser sister even now. I pushed a stack of papers aside, my patience thinning. "You think I had it easy?" I asked, my voice sharp. "I paid for your mistakes, Tabitha. Years of loans, late nights while you played the star." She froze, her hands clutching a box. For the first time, her mask slipped. I was jealous, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "You always had your life together. Your job, your plans. I didn't know how to keep up." Her confession hit me hard, not because I pitied her, but because it was the first honest thing she'd ever said. But honesty wasn't enough. "You never said sorry," I pointed out, folding my arms. "Not for the party, not for your posts, not for any of it." She looked away, her jaw tight, unable to face her own flaws. I saw it then. Tabitha wasn't ready to change. She wanted a bailout, not a reckoning. I took a deep breath, my decision clear. "I'm not helping you this time," I said. "You need to figure this out. Stand on your own 2 feet like I had to." Her eyes widened, a mix of shock and anger. "You're abandoning me," she snapped. I shook my head. "I'm not abandoning you. I'm choosing myself." I grabbed my jacket, the weight of her expectations falling away. She called after me, her voice breaking, but I kept walking. I'd spent too long fixing her messes and I was done. Back at my apartment, I sat on the floor surrounded by boxes labeled for Boston. My flight was in 2 days. My new job confirmed a senior accountant role with a $97,000 salary. I'd signed the lease for a studio in South End, $2,700 a month. My savings stretched, but enough to start. Tabitha's plea echoed in my mind, but it didn't shake me. Her collapse wasn't my fault, and her debts weren't my burden anymore. I thought about her confession, her rare moment of vulnerability. It didn't change who she was, someone who'd mocked me, leaned on me, then blamed me. But it gave me clarity. I wasn't running from her or mom or dad. I was running towards something better, a life where I defined my worth. Boston wasn't just a city. It was my freedom, my chance to build without their shadows. 2 months after the party, their desperation became clear. I was sorting through emails when Dad's message popped up. The subject line was blunt, "Your actions." His words were colder, accusing me of betraying family values. "You walked out on us," he wrote, disgracing our name in front of everyone. He didn't mention his own words at the party, how he'd called me a burden. Instead, he demanded I make amends, as if my stand was the problem. I read it once, my stomach tight, then deleted it. His guilt trips couldn't reach me anymore. Days later, a knock at my door broke the quiet. Mom stood there, her face pale, eyes red. "Piper, we need to fix this," she said, her voice trembling. "Come back, please. We can heal as a family." Her plea was raw, but it reeked of control, not love. She didn't apologize for their mockery, their years of favoritism. I stood firm, my hand on the doorframe. "There's nothing to fix," I said, my tone even. "I'm done carrying your expectations." She gasped, stepping back. But I closed the door. Her tears didn't sway me, they were too late. That same week, my phone lit up with better news. An email from the Boston firm confirmed my offer, senior accountant, $98,000 a year, with benefits and a signing bonus. I stared at the screen, my heart racing. This was it, the key to my new life. I accepted immediately, my fingers steady as I typed my response. Boston wasn't just a plan anymore. It was real, and I was ready. Clara stepped in like a lifeline. She met me at my apartment, her laptop open, ready to polish my paperwork. "Let's make this airtight," she said, her voice warm but focused. We reviewed my resume, tweaking details to highlight my new role's demands, complex audits, client management. She helped me draft a relocation timeline, flight booked for next week, $280 one way. Movers hired for $1, $200. Clara's practicality grounded me, her encouragement a quiet strength. "You're going to kill it up there," she said, smiling. I nodded, grateful for her belief in me. I turned to my apartment, now half empty. I sold my dining table for $150, my bed frame for $200. Each sale chipped away at my old life, the money funneling into my Boston fund, now at $5,000. I listed my last items online, a lamp for $40, a rug for $80. Buyers came and went, their cash stacking up in my account. I met with my landlord, signing the final lease termination papers. "You're really doing this," he said, almost impressed. I smiled, handing over the keys. "I've been ready for a while," I replied. Clara came by again, bringing coffee and a checklist. We mapped out my first week in Boston: apartment move-in, utility setup, office orientation. She suggested a budget for the first month: $2,900 for rent and utilities, $500 for groceries and transit. Her advice was meticulous, every detail thought through. "Don't let them pull you back," she warned, her tone firm. I promised I wouldn't. Their drama, Dad's email, Mom's visit, felt like echoes from a life I was leaving behind. I packed my final box, mostly clothes and essentials. My laptop, now my most valuable possession, held my job offer, my lease, my future. I donated old books and kitchenware, keeping only what fit in 2 suitcases. The process was methodical, each choice deliberate. I wasn't just moving, I was shedding years of their weight. Dad's accusations, Mom's pleas, they were noise, not truth. The night before my flight, I walked through my empty apartment. The walls were bare, the space no longer mine. I felt no nostalgia, only relief. I'd spent years tethered to their demands, their judgments. Now I was cutting the last strings. Clara texted, checking in. "You good for tomorrow?" I replied. "Better than good." Her support, her help with the details had made this real. I boarded the plane the next morning, my suitcases stowed, my savings secure. Boston waited 3,000 miles away, a city where I'd define myself. Dad and Mom could keep their values, their version of family. I was building my own one where I wasn't second best. As the plane climbed, I looked out the window, Atlanta shrinking below. I wasn't running, I was arriving. The morning I left Atlanta, the air felt lighter. I stepped into my Boston studio, the keys jingling in my hand. The space was small, but mine, bare walls, a single window overlooking South End's brick-lined streets. My first day at the firm was a whirlwind, meeting colleagues, setting up my desk, diving into client files. My $98,000 salary felt like a promise, kept each paycheck a step toward independence. I walked home that evening, the crisp air sharp against my skin, and smiled. This was my life now, built on my terms. Back in Atlanta, Tabitha's world had collapsed. She sold her condo, the one she'd flaunted as a symbol of success, to cover her debts. Now she was back under Mom and Dad's roof, her designer dresses traded for a guest room. Her boutique's failure had spread through the city's gossip circles, her once glamorous life reduced to whispers of bankruptcy. I didn't gloat, I just felt free. Her downfall wasn't my victory, but it was proof that her facade couldn't last. Dad and Mom faced their own reckoning. Word of their favoritism, their cruel words at the party, had leaked beyond their circle. Old friends distanced themselves, their invitations to galas and dinners drying up. Their reputation, once polished by years of charm, was tarnished. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Dad's business partners questioned his judgment, while Mom's charity board whispered about her unfairness. They'd built their image on control, but it was crumbling under the truth. My phone rang one evening, Mom's number flashing. Her voice was shaky, pleading for me to talk, to return, to make things right. I listened for a moment, her words a faint echo of her visit to my apartment. Then I ended the call and blocked her number. I did the same with Dad's. Their voices, their demands had no place here. I'd given them years of my loyalty, my money, my silence. Now I was done. Boston became my sanctuary. I spent weekends exploring coffee shops and Beacon Hill bookstores along Newberry Street. My work consumed my days, but it was work I loved, challenging me in ways Atlanta never did. I lived within my means, budgeting carefully for rent and groceries, but every choice felt like mine alone. No one compared me to anyone else. No one asked me to carry their burdens. For the first time, I was living true to my values: hard work, honesty, independence. Escaping a toxic family was the only way to live true to myself. Thanks for listening. So what about you? Have you ever faced family drama like this?